So this evening, we're going to be talking all about the new TransJamaican Highway offer for sale. As you may have heard by now, the government is divesting its final 20% stake in the highway to you, the members of the public. And so now we are going to hear all about this offer from CEO of NCB Capital Markets, Angus, as well as CEO of TransJamaican Highway, Ivan Anderson. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Great to have you as well. Now, Ivan, you've been on this show before. Angus, I believe this is your first time. I know we interviewed you for the APO, but you weren't on Taking Stock specifically. So welcome to Taking Stock.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm going to start with you. For those of our viewers who are not familiar with you, give us some background about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Angus Young, and I'm the CEO of NCB Capital Markets. For those of you who don't know, NCB Capital Markets is the investment banking and asset and wealth management division of the NCB Financial Group. And NCB Capital Markets is the lead broker on the TransJamaican Highway offer for sale being done by NROC.
And Ivan, a little bit about yourself as well. How long have you been with TransJamaican Highway?
Good evening again, Kalila. Good evening to your listeners. So, as you said, I'm Ivan Anderson. I'm the managing director of TransJamaica. I've been the MD for the past 4 years. Before that, I was the managing director of NROC for the past 15 years. So I have a little knowledge of the toll roads.
Right. I remember you as managing director of NROC. I didn't realize that you had transitioned full-time to just managing TJH.
Yes. So that's the journey we have been on to transform TJH over the past few years.
What has it been like these past 5 years now? Because it was February 2020, right smack dab at the beginning of COVID, that the IPO was done. What have these past 5 years been like for you managing the nation's highways?
Well, we've been able to transform TGH, Khalil, as you know. We've talked about this before. Before we did the IPO, our TGH profits were about $8 million. As you talked about when we spoke last, TGH profits are now in excess of $30 million. So we have increased our profits by about 375% over the past 4 years. Not only are our profits up, but our cost of operations are down. So interestingly, our cost today to operate TGH is actually 20% less than it was when we bought TransJamaica in 2020.
That is interesting. How were you able to achieve that?
So we've done a number of things. We restructured our operations. As you know, we've purchased one of our subsidiaries, the subsidiary who used to deal with the day-to-day collection of tolls, which was owned by the French at the time. We purchased that company, restructured that company's operations, which resulted in lower cost. We've modernized everything about the way we operate. We're a totally different organization today, as most people who use the highway know.
And I noticed that you're also expanding. I don't remember, I pass on the highway today.
Yes.
And I drive it every week, and I noticed that which one of the toll booths is you're adding an extra lane?
Right. So in December, we had our highest ever traffic. We had 100,000 vehicles on the road on December 20th. And a number of our toll booths just can't handle that volume of traffic. So as you would have seen at Vineyards, we're adding a new lane. We're also adding another reversible lane in Vineyards as well. We are also adding new ramps at Freetown. We've added another new reversible lane at Spanish Town to help us deal with the traffic. We've done a number of new improvements.
You've also made it easier for people to top up their accounts. You've added the WhatsApp top up as well.
Right. So you can top up via the web. You can top up via our app. As we have talked about before, you can automatically top up. The app will determine when you reach a particular threshold. It will top up by itself. We've added some 1,200 locations throughout the country where you can use Go Top Up, those point of sales machines to top up. You mentioned we are also doing beta testing with WhatsApp top-ups. As you know, Kalila, we're also accepting credit cards at all our toll plazas. So we've made it very easy to collect tolls, and we're to top up your account. And we're also making it. We have new features coming on board this year, which we call unattended toll payments and toll top-ups. But we can talk more about that later.
Yeah, I love the app. I never have to worry about not having cash for the toll. I wish the
Right.
other highway would take a leaf out of TJH's book. Now, Angus, let me bring you in here. This
Sure.
is a kind of a different offer than we're used to. We know about IPOs, we know about APOs. This is an offer for sale. Explain the structure of this deal and how it's different from an IPO.
Absolutely. So great question. So an offer for sale is different from an IPO in that an offer for sale is when you take an already existing security that's already in issuance, and you take a block of it and you set a price for it and you offer it to the public through this process called offer for sale, which is quite unique and exists in the region only in Jamaica. So kudos to the Jamaica Stock Exchange for facilitating these types of structures. So it's very important to note that this is not new money being raised. There's no dilution taking place. This is simply the government of Jamaica through NROC divesting its residual 20% in TransJamaican Highway, which is already a publicly listed share. So this offer for sale, this 20% is being offered to the public at a price of $3.60 J or 0.0228 US dollars for a specific period of time. So it opened today, Kalila, and the offer closes on the 18th of March. So that's a big difference between an offer for sale and an IPO or an APO. It's not new money being raised, and there's no dilution taking place. It's just offering a block of something that's already in issuance at a specific price over a specific period of time to the public.
You mentioned the offer price being $3.60 per share. How was that price arrived at, given the IPO price was $1.40, the 52-week
Sure.
high was like almost $5. I think it was $4.98. Yes, $4.98. And then last week we were at $3.90. Today we closed at $3.75.
Right.
Why $3.60?
Okay, so typically, typically when you look at APOs traditionally on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, for example, it's almost that the market expects a discount in order to move something that's already, they already have access to, so to speak. But let me be a little more scientific than that. On, I think it was January the 22nd, at the Jamaica Stock Exchange Investments and Capital Markets Conference in Kingston, the Prime Minister would have made the announcement that the government was doing this divestment of these shares in TransJamaica. And on that day, I believe TransJamaica would have closed at about $3.97. And if you look at the price of $3.60 today, that's roughly about a 10% discount. So the government has decided to offer this 10% discount to the public to encourage every Jamaican to take advantage of this access to a wealth management, a wealth creation opportunity. So to encourage the people of Jamaica to make it available to every Jamaican, the government would have priced a 10% discount to the price that it traded at on the day that the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance would have made that announcement on the 22nd of January. So in effect, what I'm saying is if the market had priced, if the market was pricing TransJamaica in the $4 $4.50 range, and it's only due to this announcement that it has traded down to where it is now, which I think you mentioned 370. If
375.
375. So it's just a function of the announcement and the price being 360. There's a pickup from time zero, Kalila. That's how I see it, because the market would have priced it in the fours already. So it's a discount that I think everyone should take advantage of.
We have quite a few questions in the chat. Let me start taking some of them. Ivan, this one is for you, comes from D, who says, speaking of percentage growth in revenue, once TJH starts collecting for the new leg, by what percentage are you expecting revenue to grow?
Well, we expect that we will be able to attract maybe an additional 11,000 vehicles on the new leg of the highway. We don't yet have an agreement in place with the GOJ, so we can't speak to what the toll rates will be. We have discussed this issue before, Kalila, in terms of the toll rates, but right now we're anticipating about 11,000 more vehicles. Currently, we have about 70,000 vehicles on average on the highway every day. So we'll add maybe 15% more traffic on the network.
What's the delay in coming up with that, settling on an agreement with the government? Because it's been, what, a year and a half now since it's been finished?
Right. Your guess is as good as mine. I think we're close to finalizing the documentation. It's just been about finalizing the concession agreement, signing off on the tolls, and going through that process. But as we understand from NROC, that process should be completed shortly.
Because as a user, I'm not complaining, but as a shareholder, I am. As a shareholder, I want to see the revenue come in. So Learn, Grow, Invest wants to know, when is the gas station expected to be completed?
So the gas station, in partnership with Rubis, we're building a new gas station along the Portmore Causeway, and that should be finished in the second quarter of this year. They are well advanced, and as I said, it should be finished in the second quarter.
Question for Angus. This one comes from Lavaine. In regards to shares allotment, is it a first come, first served basis, or will it be similar to the IPO offer where everyone gets something?
Okay, so there is definitely on a first come, first served basis, but there is a special reserve for strategic investors, and NROC will decide how that is allocated. But it is definitely on a first come, first served basis, Kalila. And given the demand that we see to date, I would encourage any interested investor to move as quickly as possible to ensure that they get their full subscription.
Question from Learn, Grow, Invest. Will those who participate in the offer for sale get the first dividends to be announced for the year?
So I think that would be a function of when the process is completed and the allocation takes place, and when the post-div date is set. I think those are very important dates to take note of. What I would say to those investors who are interested in dividends, the TransJamaican Highway has a dividend yield just over 5%. And when you look at the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the median dividend yield is probably 2.5%. So this is one of the highest paying dividend stocks, very stable revenue model. So definitely one of those cash flow type equity investments. So from what's also interesting, Kalila, is that the TransJamaica has not started earning from 1C as yet. So that's not built into the revenues to date. In addition to which, the debt that TransJamaica has is amortizing. And as that debt amortizes, essentially you're going to have additional free cash flow as principal is paid down. So you 1C that's not earning as yet, but it's on its way. And then you have debt that's amortizing, which in effect allows for additional free cash flow. So there's only an upward trajectory that I see.
Great points. 1C would be the Maypen to Mandeville leg?
Maple to
The Williams Field, yes.
The Williams Field, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great points. Ivan, as we talk about the increase in traffic on the highways, you mentioned that December was the highest volume ever recorded on TransJamaican Highway. To what would you attribute that? Like, why are more people using the highways, in your opinion? Is it that more people have cars, or people just have more money, or what's going on?
It varies by toll plaza, Kalila. So if you look, for example, at the Spanish Town area, I don't know if you ever, when last you've driven along the Spanish Town bypass, but a lot of development is taking place along the Spanish Town bypass. And that is driving obviously you have increasing congestion taking place on the Spanish Town bypass. So when you look at our traffic numbers on the Spanish Town from Spanish Town, that is growing by high double digits. And that is also influencing Vineyards Toll Plaza as well. For people who coming along the Old Harbour Road, coming into Spanish Town, no longer want to come along that route. So what we're seeing is increasing development along the free roads, increasing congestion along the free roads, resulting in increasing traffic on the highway.
So Spanish Town is a hot area.
Is a big issue for us, yes. Obviously, as the economy grows as well. So a lot of our traffic is correlated, overall traffic is correlated with the growth in the economy. So the faster the economy grows, the faster our traffic grows as well.
All right, let's take some more questions from the audience. There are a lot of them. The diplomat wants to know, when is the projected completion date for the Williamsfield to Hodges leg? And also, when is the next AGM?
So we are not involved, obviously, in the Williamsfield to Hodges leg. That would be the government of Jamaica at this point. Our AGMs are typically in June of every year, and we expect it to be in around about the same time.
Next one is for Angus. This comes from Ryan. Musson has been selling hundreds of millions of units above $4 leading up to the announcement of the offer. Should the public be worried that a top 10 shareholder was selling so heavily to the public?
No, I don't think so at all, Kalila. I would say this to you, and I know you'll like this one, Kalila. Warren Buffett, price is what you pay, value is what you get. So if you look at, for example, the JN Group would have released their valuation on the TransJamaica share this week. NCB Capital Markets would have released our valuation, and they come in at 4.56 J dollars from JN and 4.43 J dollars from NCB Cap Markets. That's what you call the intrinsic valuation of the TransJamaica share that was done by independent subject matter experts. What is being offered to the public is $3.60. So you're able to buy something that's intrinsically valued in the mid fours for the mid threes. So that value that's built into there is accessible to everyone. For groups like Mussons, etc., who may have been selling down, you have to ask yourself at what price did they get in, and what they may have different needs for their funds. They have made done quite well on the share. Perhaps they have use for the capital. So no. To answer your question, I am confident that there's nothing to worry about. You have a dividend yield that is at the top of the class. You have revenues that are on the horizon, not yet being earned. And you have an infrastructure asset that's very important to Jamaica, very stable in its nature. I see this as a strong fundamentals. And for those investors who really want to own a part of Jamaica, to use the infrastructure that they use in their daily lives, this is a very unique opportunity. It's fundamentally sound metrics on this investment opportunity. So no, Kalila, I would not be worried.
As you mentioned, an infrastructure asset that's very important to Jamaica, Earl has a question. When the investment by NROC is recovered, who will the highway turn over to? The shareholders or the government?
Well, Ivan would be able to get into more detail, but from what I understand, the TransJamaica has a concession that expires in maybe 2036. Ivan could correct me if I'm wrong, but then the option to the option to renew for another 35 years. So this is something that this is very long term. This is very stable ownership. I view TransJamaica Highway as being the owner operator of this highway into the foreseeable future, and I stand to be corrected by Ivan.
Ivan?
No, I think that's correct. So as Angus said, we have a 35-year concession. So for the benefit of your viewers, that allowed us to design, build, finance, and operate the highway. That concession ends in 2036, as Angus indicated. But in 2036, we have what is called an option to extend the concession for another 35 years.
Okay. Next question comes from Rob, who wants to know, he has a long-term question. Will TJH stretch all the way to Negril in Westmoreland eventually?
So there are obviously a number of new opportunities. One of your callers talked about the Williamsfield to Hodges. And obviously there is also the Montego Bay bypass, which is now under construction. There is also the North Coast Highway, which the government is developing. We see ourselves playing a part in those. Obviously, those are not guaranteed for us, but we would obviously take the opportunity to bid on those to be able to operate those as part of the network.
Limitless Podcast wants to know, any plans to expand outside of Jamaica?
But there are a number of opportunities, especially obviously in Guyana. We've begun to look at those opportunities. We think we have a lot of value that we can bring to that operation. And so we continue to look at those.
Yes, because their government is investing a lot in infrastructure, given the economic developments there in the past 5 years.
Exactly.
However, when you look at the issue of what their population earns, can that sustain a toll?
So maybe I could help. There, Ivan. We being very familiar with Guyana. Kalila, make no mistake. The government of Guyana, the equivalent of what you call a sovereign wealth fund, is now in excess of $3 billion US. $2.4 billion US was deposited in that fund in only 2024. They have enough money in that fund to pay off the entire sovereign debt of Guyana and still have excess funding. So where their ability is concerned in terms of capital expenditure, make no mistake, improving logistics from across Guyana, touching Brazil. There are many different infrastructure type, logistic type assets that they can develop that will unlock value, not only for trade, but of course in real estate, etc. So where tolls are concerned, my view is that it's wide open, because when you create easier access than what is there today, think about Brazil and think about what could be channeled through Guyana to the north coast of South America. Think east and west. There are boundless opportunities, Kalila, where logistics is concerned. Remember, Guyana is huge. The entire UK can fit into Guyana. So that infrastructure possibilities there are incredible.
Very interesting opportunity indeed. Let me take this next question from Limitless again. Any plans for a share buyback, given more shares will be in circulation? You're just selling them now. You buy them back so quick. But yeah, Ivan or Angus?
I mean,
so I would not be able to comment. Yeah.
You would not what?
I wouldn't be able to comment because I wouldn't know.
Ivan?
So I think we discussed this issue, I think, the last time, Kalila. So earlier in 2022, when the shares were trading just above where we had offered them, we had thought about buying back some shares at the time. We had actually modified our articles to allow us to buy them back on the market. But given where they are now, we're not seeing that right now. We're not seeing the need to buy back any shares at this point in time.
Okay. So there have been, and let me take the question from Sean, because I have been seeing these complaints. Sean says, I'm seeing a lot of videos on social media of people complaining of traffic wait time at the tolls. What's being done about this?
So we talked a little bit about some of the things that we're doing. So at Portmore, we've added new reversible lanes at Portmore. So we have more tag lanes available at Portmore. At Spanish Town, we've added a new tag lane a new lane, both tag and manual, in January. We talked before about adding new lanes at Vineyards, and that's under construction. We have a project, a partnership with MasterCard that we're doing this year, which we call Tap and Go. So currently, when you drive up to the toll plaza and you want to pay by credit card, you pretty much do what you do at any other location. You give the credit card to the toll collector, or you tap on the machine. Well, the toll collector puts in the information in the point of sale machine, puts in the amount of the toll. You either tap or swipe your card. It goes away, comes back, gets an authorization. You print out the receipt, you give the receipt back to the customer. But we are working on this year, along with MasterCard and NCB, what we call Tap and Go. So when you come to the toll plaza, what we anticipate is that the toll plaza will communicate with the point of sale machine. So the amount of the toll will come up on the point of sale machine. You just tap on the point of sale machine goes away, gets the authorization, comes back, and automatically opens the barrier without anybody in between. No attending, unattended, totally unattended. So that's where we see ourselves going in terms of credit card payments. And hopefully that will also smooth the way through the toll plaza.
Yeah, and which would also reduce your cost.
And which should also reduce our cost, yes.
Moncherie is seeking some clarification. Angus, this is for you. Is the number of U.S. shares available the same as the Jamaican dollar shares? Explain the USD shares and why the price of the USD shares appears to have been relatively flat.
Okay, no problem. So the truth is the J dollar share and the US dollar share have the same ISIN, which is a unique identifier number. So essentially, it represents the same ownership. Just one is denominated in J dollars, one in US dollars, and on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, one is traded on the J dollar main listing and one is trading on the US dollar listing. So you would find that there would be different liquidity between the two shares. The one that's quoted in Jamaican dollars, there would be more volumes traded, but theoretically, the US price should adjust and not really leave too much of an arbitrage between US and the J dollar price. I guess it depends on the investor and what currency they have. I see things a little differently in the sense that if you have US dollars invested, for example, let's just say you invest in US Treasuries. US Treasuries today would yield you, let's say, 4%. You have an opportunity to take those US dollars and invest in the TransJamaica US dollar share that's listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, where the dividend yield is in excess of 5%. And the only trajectory you have, in my opinion, is the upside potential outweighs the downside potential. So you ask yourself, would I stay in a US Treasury earning 4%, or would I invest in a share that I stay in US dollars, immediate dividend yield of 5% with tons of upside because it was trading higher than that just in January, and that the revenues from 1C are not yet there, and that the debt amortizes, so it creates more free cash flow going forward. And it's an infrastructure asset, so it's not a very volatile asset, very stable revenues. And again, Ivan could correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe TransJamaica's traffic volumes today are greater than what was projected back prior to COVID when they did the IPO. But again, Ivan could probably correct me if I'm wrong. But certainly from that perspective, I find the US dollar option very attractive, simply given the yield and the potential for upside for something that's very stable and proven. Proof of concept has been proven.
All right, just to confirm, Angus is correct. When we did the IPO projections in 2020 for the subsequent years and for 2024, for example, our traffic volumes, despite the impact of COVID, today are higher than those which are projected in our IPO. So our revenues are actually higher today than we actually projected in the IPO. But I just wanted to clarify a response I gave regarding the purchase of shares. So what I was alluding to is where the share prices are significantly below what we think the market price is, then we would look at repurchase of shares. Where the share prices are close to the market, or we think are the market prices, then it's unlikely that we would purchase shares.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. I'll take this final question from Ashley. She wants to know, is resilience to climate change a consideration in current operations and future plans? We know how rain, storm, hurricane, mash up road, earthquake, mash up road. So what is the thinking and the plan there?
Excellent question. So one of the things that we have done over the past few years is to review our design standards. So looking at how does a 100-year storm, for example, impact the highway? And we have looked at the areas that we think there are weaknesses, and we have a plan to improve those locations. Suffice it to say, as anybody who have driven on the highway would recognize, we are also very proactive in terms of our maintenance. So we continually improve our roadway. Every year we do routine overlays in order to improve the life of the pavement. We pride ourselves in having 0 potholes on our network.
And that's a fact. All right, so I'll give you both one final comment. What is your last message to potential shareholders watching this right now? What would you like to say to them? Let me start with Angus.
Sure. So I'll try not to get too technical and just break it down as this. On January 22nd, the share would have closed at $3.97. The Prime Minister would have made an announcement of the divestment. That was followed by the Minister of Finance speaking at the same conference, would have announced the divestment. You're seeing today a discount. You're seeing today a price being offered to you at a 10% discount to that price when the Prime Minister made the announcement. So let's assume that the market had always priced this at $4. That's an immediate 10%, assuming that the market would get back to the position before the announcement was made. You have a dividend yield of 5+%. So the way I see it, Kalila, is that you have an opportunity to almost earn 15% off the bat on the assumption that the market would return where it was pricing TransJamaica prior to the Prime Minister's announcement. Now, you also have independent subject matter experts publicizing that they value the share in the mid-4s. I'm not even pricing that in. You have an infrastructure asset that is very critical to Jamaica's logistics. You have a Jamaican economy that is moving in the right direction in the sense that its metrics with debt to GDP, etc., are improving. You have Jamaica as a country being rated BB with positive outlooks. So if you put all of that into one opportunity, that opportunity is the TransJamaica offer for sale at $3.60, Kalila. That's how I see it.
Ivan, last word goes to you.
Thanks, Khalil. Well, I won't talk about whether you should buy the stock or not, but I'll just say a few words about where we're going. So obviously over the past few years, we've transformed our operations. We've added new technology. A few years ago, the systems couldn't recognize vehicles coming through the tag lanes. We've implemented new technology which allows us to be able to identify vehicles coming into the tag lane, the size, the length, the width of those vehicles. That have allowed us now to be able to sell tags anywhere. So you can pick up a tag at the toll booth. No longer you need to come out of your vehicle to go into the office to buy a tag. We've transformed how we operate in terms of tag usage. So more than 1 million people per month use our tags. Our tag usage rates have gone up to about 50%. So more than half of the people who use our highway now use a tag. We continue to add new sections. We didn't talk about some of our new projects that we've We're currently waiting on approval. We have a new access point at Heartlands that we've discussed with both NAA and NROC. So we're waiting for final approval for that, before we can start that. So we think the future is very bright. We think that we will continue to grow, and we think that our shareholders will continue to do well.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Ivan Anderson of NROC, of TransJamaican Highway, and Angus Young from NCB Capital Markets. And of course, to our viewers, you can participate in this offer by going to NCB's Go IPO platform. That's right. goipo.jncb.com.
That's right. Yes. And Kalila, anyone can invest in this. Once you have 3,500 Jamaican dollars, you can participate in this offer for sale. And we have invited every single broker in Jamaica to make this available to their clients. We want everyone in Jamaica to have an opportunity to partake in this investment.